minutes. When there are 5 minutes left and 2 minutes left, we will start cross-examination with Mr. Smalley.
You quiz me, right?
Can you hear me? Say check, check.
Check, check. 1, 2. You guys hear me?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to get right to it. No Googling. I'm going to ask you questions.
Airplane mode.
Okay.
I go to Carm anyway.
All right, stop wasting my time. So let me just ask you this: if I plugged your ears so that you couldn't hear me, and then I asked you questions, and then because you couldn't, and then I asked you what did I say and you couldn't tell me, and then as punishment for that, I killed your child, would you say that that's objectively morally wrong?
The question has problems with it, because they didn't establish an objective standard from your worldview.
No, from you, from your worldview.
From my worldview.
Is it objectively morally wrong if I plug your ears, ask you what I said, and then kill your child for you not being able to answer?
Yeah, from my worldview, that question wouldn't exist. It's a non sequitur.
It's not a non sequitur. I'm asking you in this situation, if I plug your ears, ask you a question, you're gonna make me ask it like 3 times so that you can take up all my time with one question. Is that your tactic? Because that sounds pretty
No, I'm not
brilliant.
that slick.
Okay. Worse. Okay. So would it be objectively morally wrong in your worldview for me to do that to you?
To plug my ears, somebody will require me to do something.
Oh, just plug your ears and ask you a question. And then when I let go.
It's not a good question.
Why is it not a good? Well, you can't answer it?
I'm answering, and that is not a good question. It doesn't reflect Christian theological perspective.
I'm not trying to.
You said my worldview. It's Christian.
I'm saying according to your worldview, would that be objectively morally wrong?
It's a non sequitur. It's like saying in your worldview, can God make a square circle? Well, it's a logical impossibility. It doesn't exist.
I'm asking because I have the ability to do the things I said, and you have the ability to judge my moral actions. So it's an actual question that I'm posing to you. Would it be objectively morally wrong for me to do that?
You can try and get to the things about God. I know that, but I'm going to go along with you just for fun. All right. I already stated the answer. But I'm going to have fun. Okay. I'm going to say it wouldn't be right for me to do that. It wouldn't be right for you to do that.
Okay. Would it be okay if God?
Well, for me.
Would it be okay for God to do it?
God wouldn't do it.
But He did do it. In Exodus 9, He did it when He hardened the heart of the Pharaoh.
That was plugging his ears?
He hardened the heart of the Pharaoh so that he wouldn't listen to Aaron and Moses and systematically killed the firstborn. So
you have done the study on what it means to harden the heart.
I have, but when God does it become a moral action?
So when God, who has his omniscient power and complete total knowledge of all things, decides to strengthen the wickedness of somebody so that they will ultimately carry out his plan, you don't like that? I'm
asking you, if God did my same action, would you call that morally wrong?
Isn't the same action?
Why isn't it the same action?
Because he's not plugging anybody's ears, and you're not God, I'm not God, and he strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was already resisting him. He just increased what Pharaoh was already doing, and then Pharaoh...
Okay, so if you're already hard of hearing and I plug your ears anyway, you're avoiding the question. You're avoiding the question.
You see, Pharaoh was already doing what was wrong.
I think you know that saying God doing the same thing I'm doing is special pleading. So you're
trying to do the same thing.
Excuse me.
God's not doing the same thing that you do. If you go out there, and you're not going to, I'm not accusing you, but if you went out and just killed somebody because you didn't like them, that's not the same thing as God killing somebody because he doesn't like them. God's not arbitrary. Because in Christian theology, the Bible clearly states that all people are by nature sinners. It gets in the doctrine of federal headship. You should learn Christian theology. Yeah, and that's representation. So, Christian perspective. You want to look at my worldview, then I'm required to give you a answer.
Right, but you're putting me and God on different standards. Right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so is that not special pleading?
No, I think it's pretty smart.
But it's special pleading, isn't it?
No, you're not God.
Exactly.
So it's not special pleading.
That is special pleading.
To say you're not God?
No, to say that if I do something, it's morally wrong, but if God does it, it's okay.
Does the exact same thing? Yeah. It can only be special pleading in my defense if the actions are identical.
Okay, let me just move on. If I sabotage you, knowing you're going to fail in something, Kind of like asking you that question. But then I did it anyway. Would that be considered immoral? Yeah, if I set you up for something I knew you were going to fail at, and I did it anyway, would that be immoral?
So I'm not trying, you're going to accuse me of saying I'm trying to just waste time. I'm not. This is what I do. If you heard me on a radio show and someone asked me that kind of a thing, and I need more clarification.
Then I do fail. I said, I'm asking you to set you up.
If you did it, would that be good?
That's immoral.
I don't know if it's immoral. I wouldn't think it's pretty cool.
I agree.
Look at morality here. A different issue than setting up to fail about something.
Would it be immoral, yes or no?
I don't know, because we have to define what morality is in the context of what it is you're setting up to fail to do. If it's, about being able to do rubber band tricks that Matt can do, and I can't do it, is it immoral? No, I just can't do it.
It feels like it's already been 15 minutes. Isn't it?
That happens when things aren't going your way.
Yeah, that's it. The argument here, Matt, is according to Genesis in the Garden of Eden, God knew we were going to fail this whole concept of seeking knowledge, and He created it anyway. So God knew we were going to fail, but He did it anyway. Tell me why that's a moral action.
Because God did not force anybody in their free will to resist Him.
Hold on. In my analogy, I didn't say I forced you.
I'm trying to answer the question.
I understand, but this is my time right now.
You want me to answer the question?
I'm telling you that that's not the same thing, because I'm
not the same thing.
I'm not forcing you to answer. Right?
So wait a minute. I thought the issue was identical stuff, but now the same thing.
I'm telling you. No. I need you to listen.
I'm listening.
God created the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
Put the tree there, the whole thing. He knew for a fact what was going to happen ahead of time. He knew they were going to fail, but He did it anyway. Is that a moral action?
Yeah.
It's moral. Okay, that's good.
Because
that's good to know.
He allowed them to exercise their free will.
But He knew ahead of time what they were going to do.
So when I know my daughter doesn't do something right, I'm not making her do it. I'm not responsible for her not cleaning the room when she's supposed to.
Yeah, not cleaning a room and having cancer and torture, two different things.
Oh, but He's not talking about cancer and torture. And besides that, guess what? Things didn't start going bad with Adam and Eve until they started acting like atheists and started making their own moral decisions.
See,
I've been saving that one. I've been saving that. You know how hard it is to keep that to myself with the right time.
I don't know. I think if they were atheists, they'd be a little bit more respectful.
It was laughter.
But
you smiled.
Let's see. If two Christians claim to have moral superiority over atheists because they have the objective moral truth that you're talking about in God, but then when Christians disagree on a moral dilemma, how do we atheists know which Christian to trust?
Call me on the radio show and I'll answer the question. That's a joke. Come on, you guys. Oh, man.
This is tough.
No, what you do is you just go to the Word of God. You take the principles that are found there in Scripture. You do your best to try to apply them. In Romans chapter 14, verses 1 through 12, there are the admonitions by Paul the Apostle to allow for debatable issues and disagreements.
Okay. You said before that even people who go to hell go there for the glory of God.
Yes.
Now, how is causing people to suffer for your own glory a moral decision?
It's not the causation of suffering. That's a misrepresentation, which is often the case that atheists will undergo in trying to decry the actions of God. The eternal punishment that is due to them is because of the offense against the infinitely holy God. He has clearly provided the means of redemption from that righteous judgment.
Right, but Matt, He could just make them no longer exist. Like they don't get to come into heaven; they just poof and vanish. They don't exist any longer. How is specifically the eternal torture of human beings? How is that the best moral decision?
You have to ask God that one, because He's the one who apparently.
Well, I'm not debating God. I want to know your opinion.
My opinion is this: that if I were to slap you, which I'm not going to do, if I slapped you upside the head, you might say, "What was that for?" If I slap Obama upside the head, it's a federal offense, I go to jail. If I, so to speak, go up the infinite chain of command to God.
That's only
If you ask me a question, I'm going to finish it.
That's only difference because of a law. That's not a moral wrong. It's not more morally wrong to slap Obama than it is.
I was answering. You want the answer or not?
Well, I want the answer to make sense though. So
Well, it doesn't make sense if I don't complete it.
No, but it's a law. The only reason slapping Obama comes with a bigger punishment is because of a law, not a moral
Well, let's see, let me ask you. No, Ken, I'm supposed to ask you, you're supposed to ask
Yeah,
me.
you ask
But
me.
it's difficult to make sense of something if I'm not allowed to complete my thought
Okay.
that I've been asked to give an answer for.
Okay. So, what standard of morality? What
like
standard? What
Man,
standard of morality? Talk to me. Talk to me.
This is your guys.
No, they're not.
It was the atheist who did that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry on his behalf.
Thank you.
Oh, 5 minutes. See what you did? Okay. All right. Briefly, what standard of morality do you use to determine that God's morality is good?
I don't. It's non sequitur.
So your strategy is to just not answer the questions?
You see, in logic, if the question doesn't relate to the facts, and the question's a non sequitur in relation to.
Well, do you believe God's morality is good?
And so I don't use a morality that's superior to God, of which I can judge God in the Christian worldview. That's an impossibility. Since you did say use a Christian worldview, my worldview. So therefore, your question doesn't fit in the worldview. And if you study your Christian thought, you know that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm clear on that.
I can give you Bible studies to help you understand this stuff better.
I know. Okay, since I'm out of time here, I'm going to skip to this. If you and I were on a plane together, we're at 40,000 feet, both pilots pass out. Do you know how to fly a plane?
Nope.
I don't either. So somebody has to land the plane, okay? A flight attendant stands up and says, look, I'm in flight school. I've passed several tests. Here are my certifications. Shows the credentials. I'm trained nearly much as the pilots. In fact, I've actually landed the simulator for this plane. I've just never flown this particular plane. So she says, I'm fairly confident I can land the plane. You and I aren't. Which of the three of us should land the plane?
She.
The flight attendant. Absolutely. Well, I believe this demonstrates that absolute certainty isn't necessary for something to be the best decision. She's not a certified pilot, but she's definitely the best decision from the three of us. Now, let me add a slight twist to that and say, what if there's a guy jumping up and down in the back of the plane saying, I'm absolutely certain that I can land this plane. I can do it, but he doesn't provide credentials, he doesn't have any facts to back it up. He just claims that he can, and he says, and you know what? In fact, the guy who taught me how to land planes has actually crashed 11 of them. Are we going to let him within 20 feet of that cockpit?
Probably not. Unless he's bigger than us.
Okay, no, I agree with you. And so, in that whole little situation there, I think you can see that someone not having absolute certainty or someone not having some objective standard doesn't necessarily mean we should discount them. They can still have the best decision.
Well, when that happens, we're on the plane, then we can, I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, man. You're the guy at the back of the plane.
I am?
You're jumping up and down, screaming, claiming that you have absolute certainty that you can't demonstrate, and you just want us to trust your word for it.
I never said that. I never said trust my word.
2 minutes.
You're the one obligated to prove that the God of the Old Testament's a moral monster. Without an objective transcendent standard, you can't do it.
Well, that's another thing, man. The book you quoted from mine 6 years ago, and I've said that I was wrong about what I said in the book, and it's strange that you would address what I wrote 6 years ago instead of the argument I actually made here, because I gave an objective moral standard. In my opening, absolutely. I talked about
evolution.
No, that was just the description for how it came to be. I talked about being, talked about the veil of ignorance, and you never addressed either one of those. So I'll let you do that in your time.
Well-being and veil of ignorance.
So finally, how do you know for sure that Satan isn't pretending to be God, giving this information to defend his evil actions with piety?
Evil by definition is self-refuting. God is not self-refuting, so therefore I know he's not.
I feel like you just say words.
Actually, I do say lots of words. You've heard a lot of them. I am sesquippedalian. Absolutely, I say words. But there's reasons behind them. You see, evil is by nature self-refuting and self-contradictory. God is not. I've not found a single thing in Scripture that demonstrates that God is self-refuting. And now I can demonstrate to you that it's not. If you want to have a Bible study with me, if you want to go to Idaho, we sit for a week, we go through stuff, go on my radio show for a while, have friendly discussions. We can go through stuff and I'll show you. We'll go over the laws of logic, what contradictions really are, self-refutation, and various things. I'd be glad to do that.
I just
I'll pay your way.
I just don't know how. Okay, I'll do that.
You heard him.
Yeah, I'll go. I'd love to. I want to know why you think God would create us with a moral standard and then systematically act in a way which flies in the face of that moral standard, but expect us to believe that he is moral.
Saying he acts in a manner inconsistent, saying he doesn't act in a way consistent with moral standard doesn't make it so. You see, you can just pluck this out of the air, make it a statement. It doesn't mean it's so. You have to go through particulars and analyze them to see what your statement is.
It's not ironic though, because you said the Amalekites were being so bad because they were killing their children, and then his punishment for that was to go kill their children. You don't
and
think
then
that's
deliver them into the hands of him where they can be saved.
He could have just made them all believers though. He could have snapped his fingers and
You
fixed their
choose not to
problems.
do that. I don't know why he does not pray for you. I don't know why God hasn't revealed himself to you.
I have an idea as to why.
Because you don't want him.
Okay. No further questions, Jeremy.
You guys enjoying this?
We now transition to the 15 longest minutes of David Smalley's life.
Good thing we have an impartial moderator.
Okay, let me ask you, you ready?
I'm ready.
Ron? Okay, your book, Atheist, Baptized Atheist. All right. So do you affirm or not affirm that you obtain your ethics and self-respect from your personal experiences based on accepted social norms? Do you retract that or not?
I retract that. I don't. I think that a lot of people do, but I don't think that's where I get mine from.
Okay. Then very quickly, where do you get your ethics from?
I explained in the opening that it's based on well-being, and you can approach each situation looking at it through the veil of ignorance.
So, in other words, your ethics are based on well-being.
The facts of reality that show us well-being, not my own interpretation of what I think is best for you.
So, is well-being subjective or not subjective?
It's not so.
Really?
We're talking about basic well-being.
What is basic well-being?
Well, the argument you go to a lot, I've heard you mention tonight, torturing a child for fun. That the facts of reality show us that torturing a child is not it's not conducive to the well-being of that child.
So you're begging the question. You say well-being is a standard of goodness. Why? Because it's well-being. It's a so-called circular argument. So you just say well-being is the right standard to go to. In other words, reduction of harm is basic. It's another way of saying it, well-being. So all you're doing is saying well-being is the standard we're going to go by. Well, how do you know it's the right one? Because it's what people want. Because that's what the
I
end of
never
it
said
is.
that's what people want. It's not about what an individual.
They don't want to be well-being?
It's not about what an individual wants.
It
It's
isn't?
about the facts of reality that are outside of a person's opinion.
So it's not about what individuals want, so it's not subjective.
Right.
So then what you want isn't the issue about well-being as far as ethics go.
Right,
Then why
exactly.
did you say it is?
When did I say that?
You said that's how you get your ethics, by well-being. That's subjective. It's out of your own
I didn't
personal
say it
preference.
was subjective. You're conflating my
It
old
is.
argument that I've said was wrong.
No, I'm going with a new one. I'm not even going there. Look, I got this right here. Well-being. Well-being.
I can see that you can spell it. I'm proud of you. I don't know.
Right there. That's good. Well-being. So how do you know that's the right standard?
It's for me. What I'm trying to get across is that I know I said for me.
Yeah, it's right. I'm writing it down. For me.
What I'm trying to explain to you, because it's in my head, what I'm trying to explain is that the fact of reality, if I were to, cut a baby's throat, and you go, oh, well, if you want to, no, it's not about what I want. I know that harming that child is an objective fact. That child is going to be harmed, and it's not conducive to that child's well-being in order to do that. And I don't need a God to tell me not to harm a baby.
Now you're just confirming what Romans 1 says, the law of God written on the heart of every man. You see, the thing is, you're not able to justify that. Now, you brought up the issue of the torturing babies thing, which is I'm kind of known for. There's a statement. Statements are either true or false. Okay, you are sitting there. True. I'm a girl. Not true. So there's a statement I make. It is always wrong for anyone to torture babies to death merely for their personal pleasure. Is a statement true or false?
It's true.
So then you're actually saying there's a universal moral absolute that everybody ought to obey. It's always wrong for everyone to torture babies to death merely for their personal pleasure. So you say if it's true, then you're saying it's always wrong for everyone. There's a universal moral absolute that they ought to obey. That's what you're saying.
Yes, based on the well-being of the child.
Oh, so it's based on the well-being of the child.
Right.
But that's not the issue. See, it's always wrong for everyone to do this for their personal pleasure. It's not the issue of the well-being of the child. But the focus of the statements is on the motivation. It's purely for the personal pleasure.
That doesn't change my answer.
Well, that's unfortunate because it demonstrates you can't answer the statement. Because the statement itself demonstrates that there's a universal moral absolute which you agree is true, which you can't have in your atheistic world.
Why can't I?
Because there aren't any transcendent minds and transcendent absolutes. I'm the one asking the questions.
What does that matter?
It matters a lot because you're the one affirming that there are universal moral absolutes. And it's not an issue of the harm of the baby. It's for the issue of merely for one's or for a person's personal pleasure. That's the subject. That's always wrong for their personal pleasure to do that. So you agree with the universal moral absolute. How do you justify that in your worldview? And if you appeal to the well-being of the baby, that's not the issue of the topic.
That's the standard I use by which to judge is the well-being.
Okay. So well-being. All right. So let me ask you a question, which I don't think you were able to answer the question, but we'll move on. Let's just say it's the well-being of a child. So a woman who's in a coma, absolutely just comatose, she's barely alive. I don't know what that means medically. Okay, please excuse me if you know about this stuff. And there's a man who thinks she's pretty hot, and he rapes her. She's not harmed physically. She's not harmed mentally. She's not harmed spiritually. She's not harmed emotionally. Is that wrong?
Absolutely, that's wrong. Yes.
But there's no effect on her well-being.
Sure there is.
How's that?
Well, as a secular humanist, I put a lot of stock in bodily autonomy and someone having rights over their own body and their own person. So that would be a violation of her personhood, whether she wanted it to happen or not. That's a violation of her personhood.
That's a different issue than well-being, which you've not defined.
Well, it wouldn't be good for her for that to happen. I think it's pretty.
Why not in an atheist worldview? And if she gets pregnant and has a baby, she's just passing on the genetic information, and he did what was necessary because it was evolutionary property.
Okay,
If you decry that, then you decry your own evolutionary system.
Matt,
Absolutely.
There's a clear difference between me describing kin selection to say this is where it started versus what we've been able to build upon that as advanced apes.
Well, okay, that's just called argumentative popular. And what that means is that the majority of the people will hold to this, and this is why we're going to say this. Your standard isn't objective, other than to say it rests in societal norms. But what you are doing is saying that you have the right to judge other cultures, but you haven't established in the system. When I ask you, based on what you said here, on the well-being, then you move the goalpost. I said, based on well-being of this issue, that's what I asked you. You didn't answer the question. In your worldview, if it's based on well-being, if she's raped and there is no harm, there's no decrease in her well-being, on that basis and in that question, is it wrong?
It is still wrong because of bodily autonomy and her own body being violated.
Okay. So is well-being affected?
I would say so, yes.
How?
Someone being violated when they're in a coma,
There's no effect to her well-being.
well, there's also a lot of potential effects. The man could have diseases,
So
there could
then-
be all sorts of things.
So then well-being in itself isn't the right criteria, is it?
It's one of the criteria.
Oh, one
It's
of the
not- yeah,
criteria.
It's the major.
So then your ethics, they evolved based on the question that you're asked and the corner you're in.
Well, what I can tell you is, I said in my opening, which I don't know if you were listening, but
I was.
it was well-being along with the veil of ignorance. So the veil of
I
ignorance
didn't miss
is
that one. Someone was talking next to me. What do you mean by that, please? Really quick.
You're familiar with John Rawls' veil of ignorance?
Let's not go there because it was time. I mean, I asked.
Okay, so the veil of ignorance is essentially, we put a veil up, you don't know which person you're going to be in the situation, and you have to determine fairness, right? So you want to get 4 kids to divide up a cake evenly. Or fairly, you give one kid a knife and tell them, you cut all the pieces, but you get to select your piece last. that's the way for you to determine that the pieces are going to be pretty even, because he doesn't want to get screwed in this whole deal. So you put up the veil of ignorance over the Old Testament and don't tell God, you're either going to be God or you're going to be the people. Would he want things to be the way they were? And the same analogy works in the rape situation. You put up the veil of ignorance and say, look, you're either going to be the person in the coma being raped or you're going to be the rapist.
So in other words,
That-
move the
that changes
goalposts.
things.
I just went
It's
with
not
what
moving
you
the
said.
goalposts.
Yes,
It's using the
it
veil
is.
of ignorance as a mechanism to determine ethical situations.
You said, or the standard of harm or the standard of well-being, and you want to redefine your standard.
I said that that's the standard, but the mechanism is the veil of ignorance, which I just described.
So,
Did you get a half hour? How long have we been going? Wow.
6 minutes, really rough, huh?
Well, this is tough.
It's tough, yes, it is. So you believe then that the consequences of the action will determine the moral truth of it? I'm just asking you. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. I'm not a consequentialist.
Okay, good, I'm just verifying. You're not a consequentialist.
Right.
Okay. So what is the standard of morality then?
It's the well-being
Well-being,
with the veil of ignorance.
with the veil of
mechanism.
ignorance. Okay, so it's been altered. Okay, that's all right. So, well-being, and that's not subjective. Not subjective at all?
No.
So you don't think that accepted social norms are part of the system?
Well, I mean, there are going to be some minor individual moral, like should you park in a handicapped spot when you don't have the proper credentials, things like that. Little things like that you can have little arguments over. But I'm assuming you're talking about big, massive ethical decisions on rape and torturing children and things like that. So I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at.
5 minutes. Let's just move it along a little. So you decry God because bad things happen?
No.
No?
I do not believe in the God of the Old Testament because I do not think there's sufficient evidence to show that that deity exists.
Well, evidence is subjective.
I don't reject him because I'm angry at him. I talk with him like I talk with you, like I would about any fictional character.
Well, evidence is a concept that's subjective and is based on the criteria that you need in order to achieve a certain end. And that's what we can talk about, the abstraction that evidence actually is. It's a whole other topic. You should study. No, I'm just telling you that's what it is. So if there's an issue of rape, murder, starvation, is that evidence, because they occur, just trying to clarify, is it evidence that God does not exist?
I'm sorry.
Because rape, murder, and starvation. Let's just use those three representatives. Because they occurred, is it evidence that God does not exist?
No, I don't think so.
Is it moral evidence that God does not exist?
No.
So to bring up any of these atrocities like this is not evidence that God doesn't exist.
Right. This debate is not about the existence of God. Right?
Okay, good. Good.
No, I walked into the debate acknowledging that this character exists.
So you're presupposing God exists in the Old Testament then?
For the purpose of this debate, I'm talking to you like I would talk
The
about
God of the
any
Old
fictional
Testament. All right.
character.
So the
We can
God
have
of
a
the Old
debate
Testament.
about
I got you.
Voldemort or
I
Peter
got you.
Pan or
I got
anything
you.
else.
I got you. So the God of the Old Testament, as you would say, has allowed various atrocities to occur, right?
In the story of the Bible, yes.
Yes. And you have used those as evidence why he cannot be true. That he's going to be a moral
That's
monster.
false. Yeah, yes. I'm
Right.
using it as evidence that if he
Okay.
exists, he's a moral monster.
Okay. So then if, by your word, your logic, the corollary occurs, where God does good things in the Bible, where rape is stopped or starvation is stopped. Let me question that question. If that is the case, then is that evidence that he is not a moral monster?
If there were things in the Bible that he did do that were good,
That we're good, by your standard of good.
well, I mean, sure, serial killers back to lunch for their kid.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they're
So-
good.
So I'm just asking, this is an issue of logic. You say these, so to speak, generic things, bad things occur, God doesn't stop them, so therefore he's immoral.
Right.
So good things are stopped by God in the Bible, but that also means he's immoral. It doesn't mean he's moral. You have a double standard. You say this behavior or lack of behavior, this is where I'll conclude, but when it's the opposite, the corollary, then when he does the same kind of logic is applied, I'm still going to say it's not evidence for him.
No, what I'm saying is him doing a couple of nice things here and there
Couple?
does not negate all of the horrific things he does in the
Horrific things. And you're the one to judge those.
Sure.
You're the one to judge the horrific things of God.
Why not?
Okay.
How do you determine God's good?
You want to know?
How do you determine God's
You
good?
want to know?
Yes.
You can all mock if you want. He revealed himself to me. Another topic, another discussion. Yeah, go ahead and mock.
I've been healed by Jesus.
And you just don't know. Maybe we'll talk sometime. All right? So, some other time, we'll tell you. All right? It's not so easy. When you're in the presence of incredible holiness, you know he's holy. You know he's right.
Would you be wrong
You
about
know. No. Absolutely no. There's absolutely no way. If what happened to me happened to you, I guarantee you, you'd be sitting here. Absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You like to talk about experience. You like to talk about preference. Let me tell you, I've got it. I've got it, as well as evidence and as well as logic. And the issue is that in the Old Testament, you wanted to cry God because the things that he allows to occur, you judge as being wrong. And when he does bad things, you don't give him the benefit of the doubt, so to speak. Your standard's a double one. You'll only look at what you want, what you're hoping for. You're going to find that God is bad because he doesn't do what you want him to do. And then when he doesn't do, or he does do what you think is good, you still don't give him the glory or the credit. The issue is not here with the facts. The issue is with the heart.
Is this a question? Because I feel like we're in the principles.
No, I'm a preacher. All right? And that way, it's easier for you. You don't have to be examined so much.
Whoa. Seattle time.
Are we out of time?
We have 28 seconds.
27 seconds. 27 seconds.
Knock, knock. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we can't do this in 30 seconds. So I want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Everybody.
Got Q&A?
We'll take 5 minutes. Again, throw money at the bar. We'll start accepting tips. Be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.